It's preparing.
Yes, got it.
I don't know what you guys are seeing on your end. I just see a white screen that says Zoom to YouTube.
Yep, we are live on YouTube. Hello and welcome everyone to Meaningful Conversations. I'm Suzanne Taylor King.
I don't know what
and
you
today,
guys are seeing on.
oh, now I'm
I
hearing
just
some
see a
background echo. All right, now we're good.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome everyone to Meaningful Conversations. I'm Suzanne Taylor King and I am today's MC for this lively conversation about women's health. And this monthly forum is sponsored by Living Healthy List. We discuss topics that are relevant to your health, your wellness, your personal growth, and bringing a little bit more fun into your life. Today's discussion centers around the mind, body, and soul. We'll unravel some of the mysteries of women's health that leave you scratching your head, empowering you with the unwavering confidence and that knowledge to navigate life's intricate tapestry. Beautiful words, Denise. Our panel of experts each has a unique approach that can guide you and move you towards that personal, professional, and your physical goals. That's how you enact change. These conversations are meant for that. Join in the discussion, ask questions, light up the chat with stuff for our panelists today. And I'm going to introduce you to Marjorie Nass. She is a perimenopause and menopause coach. Where were you 10 years ago, girl? I need you so badly. Diane McClay, empowerment coach, giving us all kinds of choices on our healthy journey. Andrea Haley Shankin will be joining us soon. She's our Ayurvedic chef. And of course, Living Healthy List founder and curator, Denise Stegall, healthy living liaison and curator of all things goodness at Living Healthy List. Hello, everyone. Denise, love to give you a few minutes and say hello to everyone today.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, whether you're here live or on the call, if you're checking us out on YouTube or checking us out later on with the replay. It's great to see you. I'm always excited to participate in meaningful conversations as a panelist. It's really fun to do and be the host. But in addition to doing that, like just being a panelist is so much fun because I do have some great information and knowledge that I love to share. Most of you who know me know my shtick, eat real food, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Meaningful Conversations is a monthly forum. We're generally here the second Tuesday of the month at 12 Central Standard Time. So this month we did a little bit of a change. We had to change the week. So we're actually running a week behind. That's all because I kind of made a little oops and jumped on a plane that day. So this is so much fun. It's always great to connect with other experts and other people, other women who are, in this lifetime, we really want to connect. We want to share and embrace each other and each other's thought process and ideas. So welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Diane, say hello to everyone today.
Hi, everybody from beautiful, sunny Denver, Colorado. It's my new home. And a little bit about me is that two words that are super important to me are choice and courage. And later, I want to just share with you kind of my easy, simple recipe for how to get out of the stuckery of trying to make the right decision or the wrong decision, or fearing the paralysis of making a good decision, good choice or bad choice. But I've been called into the empowerment coaching world. I gave up my dream job as a park ranger after 23 years. And I realized that there's actually a lot out there that we have in our own control that sometimes we as women especially have forgotten that we can have control over, or that we've been led to believe that we shouldn't have that control. We're going to talk a little bit about how we get some of that back later today.
Love it. Thanks, Diane. And Marjorie, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here, and thank you for having me. I help women thrive through perimenopause and menopause without the struggle of the hot flashes and the irritability and the fatigue and excess weight. And I came from a corporate background and was not well at all, doing all the running around. And I found yoga and its wellness science, Ayurveda, and we'll hear a little bit more of that later. And I sailed through perimenopause and menopause, and I found that many of my clients were really struggling. So when I invited them into the connecting with nature's rhythms and a lifestyle that really was aligned with that they began to thrive too. And many women think it's inevitable, that the suffering is inevitable. And it's just not true. Women can enjoy and embrace this time in their life, this chapter in their life. It's not over. So it's my mission to help those women reclaim their lives, because when women are suffering, everybody around them is struggling. It affects their relationships, their community, and they're really not living a full life. And I want to help them to do that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Thank you so much.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks so much to the three of you for this conversation today. I want to just open up the floor to a question. And this question, today's topic really resonated with me because of my own journey. And I want to know, and I'm sure our audience does too, how does it shape your approach to working with your clients? And what does that look like for you personally as well? Whoever wants to jump in and go first.
How does what shape my approach to working with my clients? Just the meaningful conversation or menopause?
No, this idea of thriving through menopause, this idea of navigating it with confidence. How does that look for you? And, when you're helping your clients.
And I think overall, women's health, obviously, we're all at that stage, that perimenopause, menopause stage. And that's such a big, a huge part of what we talked about as women. But obviously, there are other pieces too, mindset pieces. And I know, Diane, you're really great about that. So I would like to start how this topic, navigating women's health with knowledge and confidence. I have to say, when I started to experience perimenopausal symptoms, it was intense. And I really spent a lot of time searching for answers, going to different doctors, going to different naturopaths and different natural doctors and chiropractors, and reading and everything that I thought that I should be doing. But I wasn't getting any answers until eventually I actually came across one person. And this was a big part for me. This was the most important part. I came across somebody who actually wanted to talk to me and would allow me to, express my fears and my frustrations, and cry a little bit too, because, it's incredibly emotional. As women, we can be really emotional, and sometimes irrationally so, as some people tell me every now and then. But our emotions are such a big part of our hormones, and, throughout life, think about when you're a teenager, hormonal teenagers, that changes throughout life. But at this stage in life, perimenopause and menopause, I think how it affected me, or how I work with my clients, or how it affects the way I work with my clients, is to be able to have that open dialogue and find out what each person is struggling with. For me, my experience, I took all of my experience and wrote my first book, Healthy Living, Happy Life, where we focus on eating real food, making good decisions, and being accountable. And we take those 3 steps, and for each person it's different, which is why I think that conversation is so important. It's essential to have that conversation so I can help each one of my clients kind of find their own way, their own roadmap, so to speak. Because, our lifestyle isn't one size fits all. As much as some doctors want to tell us that everybody goes through this, everybody goes through it. Well, yes, people go through it, but they go through it differently. Like Marjorie mentioned, she didn't really struggle. Other women, I mean, I'm at a place where I'm finally no longer struggling, but it was a long road. And my job, I feel, is to help women to find that road or get on that road quickly, so they can really live that healthy lifestyle that works for them without the guilt, without the struggle, without skipping dessert all the time. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you for that, Denise. And as we've spoken, we align so much about this. And I'm glad you brought up the doctors, because doctors have 10 minutes for women, 10 or 15 minutes for the most part. And they're looking just at symptoms and fixing the symptoms. And there's so much more to this. And lifestyle throughout women's 20s, 30s, up until their 40s, all of that is affecting how we go through perimenopause and menopause. And a lot of the imbalances are showing up. So I call it menopausal mastery. And that also includes perimenopause. It's just too much to say it all together. And we are really looking at the underlying causes that are, of course, our hormones are changing, but there's so much about stress that's involved in why hormones are changing and hormones are out of balance. And women are telling me frightening stories about what their doctors are telling them and dismissing them and condescending to them because they don't have any answers. And as you said, Denise, women have to be heard. That was the change for you. Women need to be heard because this is affecting every area of their life. They don't feel like themselves anymore. They feel like life is passing them by and the best years are behind them. And so it has to be a holistic approach that, of course, is affected by nutrition and how we're moving and all of that. But there's so much more than that. So I really have a whole system that incorporates that. And women get to be around other women who are struggling because they can feel so alone, or it ends up being, a complaining session with their friends that just drives them deeper into this belief that it has to be this way.
Can I jump in on that? I just want to say that I think it's important that you're saying that women need to be heard. Where I sit in my chair today, I'm not anywhere close to the conversations that you guys are having. So I don't even I'm not even going to say that I'm close to being an expert in perimenopausal or menopausal stuff. But what I feel very confident that I am an expert in is helping people to be heard, first of all, but also changing your perspective. And I think for women out there who don't know how to express themselves, they're afraid to ask questions. They don't know what question to ask. There are women out there who don't even know what the word perimenopausal means. Honestly, until about a year ago, I had never heard of it. And I was like, I just thought menopause was just menopause. I didn't realize there were stages. There's pre and post and during, and then there's but my point is that we have to, as women, we have to be able to support each other. And that's what Living Healthy List does, is it's a really beautiful community of where you can be vulnerable and you can say, I really don't know. I don't even know what question to ask. And I feel kind of dumb for even saying that I don't know what kind of question to ask. But Living Healthy List, what's beautiful about all of our experts is everybody in here, and we have men in the group as well, so I don't want to discount them. They have also a very unique and different perspective to bring. But we help each other change our perspectives, which is what I do as an empowerment coach. If we can change our perspective, and we can just start holding each other accountable to changing the language we're using. Denise, you said irrational. Some people call me irrational. It's not irrational in your mind. And other women who've experienced what you're experiencing would agree with you that it's completely not irrational. So changing the words we're using, changing the perspective, changing the stigma that, oh my gosh, we shouldn't even talk about this topic. People should just go blindly through their own life, quietly in the dark, and bump against an answer that they hope helped. We have to shift that mentality as a culture, as a community, and as individual women. So anybody who's listening right now who's like, this topic makes me uncomfortable because I don't know what to ask, please make sure you get the personal information from Suzanne and Denise and Marjorie and any of our other experts, because this is the place that you're going to get the time and the attention and the compassion and the understanding and the solutions. That's what I got.
I love
love
it
that.
so much. And I just want to say that, thousands of years ago, when we were living in tribes of people, we shared stories and we shared wisdom from the older women. And that is missing in today's digital world. I'm super thankful for Zoom. It allows me to connect with people from all over the world, but there's still a vulnerability piece and conversations that need to happen. So super thankful for this group of people and being able to have those conversations. I would love to know on a deeper level how this time in your life has affected you, and not only your business, but your relationships, and most importantly, that self-esteem that you have for yourself, that self-confidence. When a doctor or friends or family don't listen to you about what's happening with you, they just kind of brush it off. It can really be a disempowering place as a woman. So let's go there. Let's talk about what's happened for you and how you help your clients avoid such things.
I can jump in real quick and then turn it over to the real experts. But for me personally, I've started asking for what I need. I'm a questions-oriented person. I like information. I actually lead with that with my medical provider, my doctor, my spouse, my friend. I actually say, I'm probably going to ask you a lot of questions. Now, if it's a doctor, I'll say, how much time do you have? And if they say, well, I got 10 minutes, the next question I will ask is, do you have a reference or someone else that I can spend more time with in order to have my questions answered? I'm empowering myself right off the bat by acknowledging that I need information in order to make decisions that are good for me. And I try to align myself with people up front and say, if you're not the person who can answer my questions, who is? So that's already mentally setting myself up for not getting frustrated when someone, again, shifting perspective, right? If they don't have a lot of time, find the person who has a lot of time. Or I need to make sure that what are the two things that I need from this specific individual in the first 5 minutes, and then I'm satisfied, they're satisfied, and then I can look for different resources to backfill the extra information that I might need to make a choice or a decision. So I lead with that, so I don't get led down a path to a place of frustration, anger, or being pushed away because I need too much.
I think that's a lesson we all need to learn.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Diane. And it goes along with this idea. Some people always bring someone else to a doctor's appointment because that just feels like it feels better, like they're going in with an advocate, and that can be really empowering as well. But just starting with the questions, like you said, and asking, who else can I ask? So unfortunately, a lot of the women that I hear from have been to doctors already, and they're not getting the answers, or they're only getting one solution, or they're being dismissed that everything is fine and this is just what they have to deal with. So empowering them means hearing them and saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And also, if they need a doctor, that they can look for other doctors, that it's not just the one person. And it's okay not to go back to someone who you didn't feel good with, who you walked out of I've heard this hundreds of times. I walked out of the doctor's office and I burst into tears in the car. And that shouldn't be the experience. And of course, some women have more resources than others to try for other things, but just to know that there is hope, and what you're getting from one person is not the answer. And in my experience, very early on in my 20s, I had very negative experiences with doctors, with OBGYNs in particular. And I, told somebody about it, and they were like, you should never go back to that person. And that's okay. And that's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do at any age, but especially like to say, is like, this isn't right. And I don't have to accept this answer or the way that I'm treated. So obviously that was many years ago. And learning the empowerment, like choosing something like that with Diane. And I love this conversation.
I think real quick, I'm just going to add, and then I want Denise to jump in, but I think that it kind of starts with kind of what is the expectation of your quality of care before you go? What is your philosophy of care, right? Are you looking for an alternative solution? Probably going to a generic MD or OBGYN is not the place to get the alternative solution. So I think from my perspective, setting the mindset up before you go. I have a friend who's a nurse who says, unless you're horizontal on a gurney or unconscious, you have time on your side. Even if you get a diagnosis of something, you have time to go get a second opinion or to inform yourself. Or like, if you can't articulate to yourself or your loved one or your best friend what your quality of care is or your philosophy of care is, how is somebody in 10 minutes supposed to meet you at that level? So I back all the way out a little bit and go, how can I change my mind and set myself up for the most amount of success first, and then push myself towards the person who can meet me halfway, as opposed to the person who's diametrically opposed to my philosophy.
I think that kind of talks to the accountability piece that's part of what I talk about all the time, is we have to be accountable to ourselves. If we're going to a doctor, naturopath, osteopath, whoever it may be, because there's something going on, we need to be able to say to ourselves, okay, this is what's going on. In reality, I think a lot of times, especially with women's issues, we kind of go in, emotional, like, oh my God, please make this stop. And we don't actually do kind of the recon work on ourselves. Like, what am I actually experiencing? How often am I experiencing this? I'm going back to the, kind of like the food log, but it's more than that. It's about logging your feelings, your, emotions, because that's a big part of it. What you're feeling when you're feeling it. Because I know for myself personally, when I was struggling at the most with hot flashes, and obviously that's a perimenopause, menopausal symptom that many, many women struggle with, it would start at 2:00 in the afternoon. I was calling them night sweats because they were worse in the night because I wasn't sleeping. But when I actually started to kind of jot down and keep a log of, when am I really experiencing it? It was at 2:00 in the afternoon that they were starting. So that was more than night sweats. It was happening all day long. So had I just gone into the doctor, and at the time I was seeing an OBGYN, if I had just said to her, I'm having night sweats, that would have brought us down into a conversation, a very different conversation than one that I needed. So I think being accountable to ourselves, it's our life, it's our lifestyle, it's our struggle. And so we need to take that responsibility for ourselves. And so we can have those educated conversations with the doctors. And you're right, Diane, if you go to an OBGYN or someone who's in a regular clinical setting, they have a set amount of time. When you're able to see somebody else, outside of the clinical world and more into a naturopathic world, they do have more time. And those conversations are different. But again, it starts with that accountability piece. Like, what do I believe? Do I believe wholeheartedly that Western medicine is the way I have to go? Am I open to other opportunities and alternatives, which is, for me, I mean, I live 6 miles from the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. It's a very medical oriented world. I had been in that world for a long time. What did I do instead? I feel better. I feel better today at 52 than I did at 37 because I chose to open my mind to the alternative world and what they had to offer. So again, it was my personal accountability to myself to figure out what it was that was important to me, what my core values were. And then I was able to have that discussion. And I think those are the discussions that we're having. We're starting to have with clients, with friends, and family members, except for my mom.
I love this so much because I want to just bring it into the container of you have to know yourself in order to know where to go for help, resources, answers. And what I heard, the common theme I just heard was that by knowing yourself, if I had known myself well enough when my journey started, I would have known not to go the traditional medical route of prescription writing because I wasn't going to take any of them. So, that knowledge about yourself is so important when you start down this journey of what am I open to? What solutions am I looking for? And sometimes that self-empowerment and self-discovery is so much more impactful than just taking everyone's advice. I think that was the common theme I just heard from the three of you. Andrea, I want to say welcome to Andrea. Hello, hello.
Thank you. It's Andrea and hello.
Oh, Andrea, sorry.
I know it's
Great to see you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you. I can't wait to hear from you. Can I add one more thing
Sure.
on those lines? So one of the things that I talk about is listening to your body. And I love what you said, Denise, like you finally paid attention enough to know, wow, these are starting at 2 p.m. And with my clients, I also like checking in with your body. What is it telling you? And we would never, hopefully we don't ignore the symptoms. Like sometimes we'll ignore a symptom, like we have to go to the bathroom and we'll wait. I'll finish this phone call, finish this. And like, that's ignoring your body's message. Not good. Andrea can speak to that about Ayurveda. Like we always want to honor those messages from the body. And for many of us, for many women, they're living from here to here and they're just moving and ignoring their hunger and skipping lunch and all of and the body is going to start telling us things. And these whispers are going to start getting louder and louder. And that's really what happens in perimenopause and menopause. And all these imbalances started building up and those come out with whether they're hot flashes or night sweats or fatigue and insomnia. And that's really what's happening. And since we're talking about there was just a pharmaceutical approved for hot flashes and night sweats. And so I just want to talk about that for a second, because for many women, they're looking for a magic pill. And I'm not against all of them. I'm not going to talk about that. But if you're just taking a pill or a replacement and you're not changing your lifestyle at all, there's only so much change that can happen in your life if you haven't really reflected on what's happening emotionally, mentally, and physically.
I jump in real quick. When you're talking about listening to the body, there are some people who don't even know what that means, right? So I would ask the coaches here, what's the question you're asking so that you can start to pay attention to what the body means? And then how do you bridge the gap of, all of us listen to our body. We know what that means. We've been practicing it for a long time. But for our listeners who that's an odd concept, the first thing a lot of our listeners may do is they feel something, they go to Google, right? And then suddenly the internet is informing them. So how do we bridge the gap from stepping away from an unnamed source somewhere in the ether that Google supports to coming internal? How do we do that?
Yeah, I'd love to speak to this. Hello, everyone. Ayurveda, you're right, Marjorie. It's all about sensations and experiences. It's very experiential, and it relies on the person's self-awareness. And the reason for that is that there's actually a progression of disease in Ayurveda. I just love this. There's 6 stages of disease, and there's symptoms in every stage. And it's not until the 5th and the 6th stages that Western medicine will identify and name what the disease is. So this is the power of Ayurveda. This is the power of looking within and becoming more aware of what's happening in your body, is that you can literally catch disease before it manifests. Because stage 5 is manifestation and stage 6 is complication. But before that, we have accumulation, and we have aggravation, and we have overflow, and we have localization. And so that's really powerful. And then the other thing is there's something called felt sensing. And felt sensing is really the language of sensations. And so if you say, you know, I'm experiencing pain, you say, well, where are you experiencing the pain? And what does it feel like? Is it dull? Is it sharp? Is it throbbing? Is it tingling? Right? So getting more detailed about the sensation that you're actually experiencing, because each one of those has a different meaning. And that is Ayurveda, right? Ayurveda is the ancient science of sensing, of energy. These are all kind of energetic manifestations that are happening. Sometimes they're physical, but it's really a different language. And so when we're engaging in alternative medicine, I feel like we're engaging in more of a traditional or an ancient form of medicine. And all of the knowledge in ancient times came from people sitting in meditation, breathing, and looking within and identifying the truth of the universe and the truth of our physical existence and all these connections through their own experiences. So those are just some thoughts I have based on the conversation. Yeah.
If I could just add one other thing, and I love how you went through those stages, Andrea. Thank you. When we are, sometimes the way that I help women start with listening to their body is things that we're already doing. So, for example, with eating, to feel the sensations in the body, we're all eating. So just settling. Like that's something that we're doing. So everybody can kind of learn to listen to, okay, I'm sitting, I'm sensing the scent, the aroma of my food. I'm thinking about where my food came from. And I'm thinking about how it feels after I eat a meal. So that's super simple. And it does require a little bit of slowing down and nutting the car and not eating standing. But it's simple. It may not be easy, but it's simple. So that's just one way that I like to do, or even just putting the hands on the belly to feel the breath. Even if we're not sitting in meditation for an hour or even, many hours like they were. We don't need that much time.
Yeah, I'd love to throw another tip out there for anyone who is experiencing something in their body. We tend to ignore it or avoid it because we're maybe afraid of what we might find there, because all kinds of things can be hiding under those sensations. But actually, one of the most powerful ways to heal, in my opinion, is to simply breathe into the sensation and the pain. So if you have pain somewhere in your body, it's something that anyone can try, like right now. Just calm yourself and just breathe into that place. And just notice how it might unfold and transform, before your very eyes, probably not your eyes, but your inner eye. And you can literally shift and transform what you're feeling simply with your awareness and your willingness to actually go to that place. So you might have to calm yourself and tell yourself it's okay, right? Create that safe space for yourself. But it's not gonna hurt you, but we think it will. Our minds somewhere think, if I go there, it's gonna be the end of the world, or I'm gonna die, or it's gonna be a disaster. But that's not the case. So that's a technique that anyone could use. I think it's relatively safe.
Yeah, I think that's about as safe as you can get, right? With recommendations. I would love to know. So what I heard just then was this willingness to learn yourself again, right? It comes back to recognizing patterns, noticing, like Denise mentioned earlier, that she was having night sweats. But then when she started tracking and noticing, she was having them in the afternoon as well. This is something I've been passionate about for years. And I would love any hints or tips for our listeners about tracking, noticing how different foods affect your symptoms, how maybe alcohol or sugar consumption affects your symptoms, how sleep. And by tracking all of those things, you can really start to see patterns in your own health, your own well-being. Would love some tips on that for our listeners.
I think as a novice in the room, I think one of the first things is the thing that's going to kind of trigger the change is when we have a really big reaction to something. My wife is allergic to onions and garlic and anything in the sulfur fountain. When we first discovered it, we were literally in a dark Italian restaurant, and the lighting was so bad that I was like, "Are you getting blotchy?" And I asked her to step outside in the sunlight, and it confirmed what I had been seeing. As Andrea is saying, though, that's at a very late stage in something developing in our body. What I know now is when I go back and I ask stories, I'm like, well, have you always liked onions? And she's like, no, my mom cooked with onions all the time, and I always hated it. Interesting. Why did you hate it? I don't know. It always made my stomach feel weird. Interesting. Right? So we typically wait until there's a negative reaction or something really, really obvious, getting flushed after drinking alcohol, feeling tired, feeling bloated. So for people who are new to this conversation, I would say, okay, start there. If you have something obvious showing up, dig in and start being your own investigator. But do what we've been talking about, where you go back in and have a conversation with yourself and ask if has this been going on longer than just, as Andrea says, when the symptom shows up, the body has already been processing this for a very long time. In the mindset kind of thing, if we can get to the point where we are mindful about what we're consuming or doing before we do the activity, the question I like to ask myself is this going to be beneficial to me now? And if the answer is yes, why or how? If I go have a beer on a Friday night, is this beneficial to me? Well, yeah, it makes me feel good for an hour. Yeah, I'm getting community watching a sports team. But am I going to feel bloated 2 hours later because I just drank a whole bunch of sugar and a whole bunch of hops? So I think that the bigger, healthier conversation is if we can start being mindful and having awareness before we engage in whatever, and then tracking from a neutral standpoint, that's awesome. But we typically have to have a big major event to kind of start that questioning process. So my challenge is flip the script, right? Don't wait for the end. Start at the beginning and just get curious and ask yourself different questions. Is a beer going to make me more creative tonight? Maybe, maybe not. If it doesn't, take note.
When I'm coaching, I ask women, what is the reason why they want to feel better? Having a bigger reason. They want to be active so they can run around with their grandchildren. They want to feel amazing. They want to be going to those weddings and being the active, cool grandma. They don't want to be one who's sitting on the sidelines and missing things. So once that why is in place, then we can go a little bit deeper. It's hard. It's, if you're choosing between having the beer or not, it can be a little, oh, I'll do it now. And when we have that awareness of how we feel, great, we get to have that choice. But when we know that each little step is either moving us towards health and a great life or away from it, then it can become a simpler decision.
And I think the beer was a perfect example. I teach my signature course is Happy Eater, and the promise is how to eat healthier without feeling deprived. And so I'm an Ayurveda, diet and nutrition counselor, and I love to eat all the things too. And so I teach people how to have their cake and eat it too. Usually by combining, the thing that isn't as supportive with something that is. I call it like antidoting. But the biggest motivator, I think, when it comes to those incremental daily choices is exactly that, tuning in. Okay, I'm going to have this thing now. How's it going to make me feel? Does it make me feel good? Do more of that. Does it not make me feel good? Don't do that. And the challenge here is that it's always different, right? Our body and mind, our conditions are always different. And so what I like to say is, if you're going to have a treat, have it when you're feeling good, because then you know that you're making a conscious choice and that you're going to have the resilience to deal with that, right? The danger and the addictive and the dangerous behavior is when you're doing things when you're not feeling good. Coming back to not knowing your why, I think that was, really important. But then incrementally, it comes back to, tuning in to how things are making you feel and doing more and doing less, and having that be the compelling place, not some outside, you should, you need to, you're following this diet, that diet. So really empowering yourself over those choices. I think that's the key to success when it comes to making dietary changes specifically.
I actually have a question for the group. So how do our listeners, our guests that we have here today and people who are listening, how do they take this information, this first step, and go, okay, how do I do that? Because I'm thinking through something that as we're talking, and I'd love your input.
What's your example? Are you willing to share?
So I have somebody who I'm working with, and love her. And she has so many things that she's got going on that she can't choose. Like, she can't decide what's important and what she wants to focus on. And so I've had a couple of conversations with her, and would love to hear, based on, Marjorie, your background, Andrea, yours, and Diane, and Suzanne, yours as well. That next conversation with this person who's going, I have all of these things. How do I pick one? How do I focus on the one thing?
Well, what is her goal? What does she want?
Yeah, the goal is, well, there's always the lose weight, but it really is more of that healthy lifestyle that fits into her she's busy in corporate world.
Okay.
Kind of fits in with that.
Well, that's where I go back to the why. Like, what's the bigger picture for her? Why does she want to be healthy? Is that going to make her better at her job? Is she going to be less stressed? Is she going to show up like more confident? So when that's leading the way, then it can become more of a priority. What are the things that she's making a priority for herself? And, she has this big presentation with 1,000 people. I'm just making this up, that she's going to do in 3 months. So how does she want to show up? Confident and driven, and like, there's the best version of herself. And then she can choose, like, well, I can, go out to X, or I can take care of myself. And how does she want to prioritize herself? That's where I would start.
I love the idea of going back to the why. Sometimes you need somebody else. So sometimes it's good to have somebody else say that, because sometimes I think it's so simple. Like we said before, it's simple. It's not always easy, but it is simple.
Exactly. And it's not about losing weight. It's about, how does she want to feel? in that body. It's not about the number. It's really not about the number on the scale. We really can't control that. Like, we only have so much control. How does she want to feel? Like I said, yeah.
I like the fact, Marjorie, that you talked about what are her priorities. And my question to every woman in this room and every woman that's listening is, if you were to list 10 priorities, your top 10, let's even simplify it and say your top 5, where do you fall in that top 5? Like, think about that. Are you 6, 7? If you have 5 priorities and you're number 10, the first step is rearrange the priority list and give yourself permission and empowerment and make the choice, be courageous and say, I am not being taken care of the way I need to be. And I don't mean by other people in my life, I mean by me. How many women, like, honestly, think about that question. If you have 10 priorities of what you have to get done today, list them out. People that are listening to us right now, make a list right now. Are you in those top 10? If you're not, you gotta restart. Like, I'm giving myself chills thinking about that, because imagine how powerful women could be if we said, today when I put my feet on the ground after I do my gratitude, I am going to make me a priority first, so that I can take care of all of the other priorities at my best.
I love
You're
that,
not in the
Diane.
top 5, you got to rearrange your list.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a name for it, actually. I call it strategically selfish. Because if we are not taking care of ourselves, we are not going to be the best mothers, daughters, grandmothers, a community member, go on and on and on. So taking care of yourself is really taking care of everybody else.
Yes. Yes, so much yes to that. I would like to add just this one thing that I notice with men and women who are looking to take care of themselves at that next level is they get overwhelmed. They get overwhelmed with the amount, not only of information, but the amount of change that needs to happen. It could be sleep, food, exercise, meditation, journaling, like all these things I need to be doing and need to focus on. And I just want to say, I'm an all or nothing girl. If it's time for me to change, I literally change everything at one time and draw a line in the sand and say, okay, done. And from now on, I'm not doing that. I understand that that's not possible for 90% of people. That small change, one thing at a time, and build those habits on top of each other is much more practical for most people. But with that being said, when it comes to your health, and we're almost at the end of our time today, so I want to be able to, are we going to hop into and take questions, Denise, from our audience?
We actually have we started a few minutes late, so we do actually have a few more minutes. So we were just going to open questions for in here in this room.
Okay, wonderful. So, Jeannie, is it Jeannie? Thanks for joining us today. And Joanna, any questions for our panelists today?
I think not necessarily a question. It's just a commend you all, first of all, for the content that's been discussed today, and understand how important it is to be our own advocates, as Diane was saying, because if we're not going to be, nobody else is. And I personally feel very fortunate that we're all bound. Quite often, we're bound by whatever our insurance company offers, which is horrendous to think that our medical decisions are based upon an institution versus what we need. And, I'm very fortunate that mine allow alternative options So yay. But this is just such an important conversation because we don't understand what's happening in our bodies because we don't really necessarily have the familial resources to ask those questions. So this is so, so important.
I love that. And I also want to acknowledge that that is probably the number one struggle for most people when they're looking for alternatives, that they're not covered or that they're more expensive or that's out of scope for my insurance. And I will say that's been my biggest hurdle to overcome. So thank you for shedding some light on that. Joanna, do you have any questions or comments, feedback?
Sorry, trying to unmute. So I really like the topics and I've been researching all over. I don't really understand. Like I think I'm postmenopausal and I'm a runner. I run like 20 miles a week, but I started accumulating a lot of a weight, and now I can't get rid of because I just went to the doctor, asked for a hormonal test. So I'm trying to figure out where I am right now, what's happening to me, like everything that was working for me before, like just get out there and run, it's not working anymore. And I like what you said, Suzanne, about building habits, and that's something that I'm gonna start doing. Like I just learned from my aunt because my parents died very young that I have never liked vegetables, not even when I was a baby. And I was fit like at least 2 years ago. And I don't know how because I never eaten vegetables, none at all. So that's something I need to start doing. Start learning how to eat vegetables in different ways because I guess I need them now. So I'm gonna start doing that what you said, building habits. So maybe introduce myself to a vegetable a week, finding different ways to cook them.
Love it.
And so thank you for this.
Hello, broccoli. I'm Joanna.
And I will say, Joanna, you're not alone. I woke up and had gained 50 pounds in maybe 3 years, and it was just a gradual thing, and I was seriously frustrated about it. So I hear you and feel you on that one.
Yeah.
I'm with you
Thank
too,
you.
and I'm a runner too. I totally get it. You know, I've been a runner for 20 years, never before that, only after I got married. But it was always, you know, if I was running, I knew my body was going to look okay, like no matter what I was doing. But now as I've gotten a little bit older, 20 years later, the running is enough. Like there's definitely my body's changed, what we need has changed, and all of that fun stuff. So we're all here to support you. At the end, I'll make sure that everyone gets that you'll get everyone's contact information. And let's stay connected. This is a great community for you to tap into.
Thank you.
And Joanna, I want to say thank you for being willing to put that vulnerability out there in front of this group, but we're also on live on YouTube. So your courage to acknowledge where you're at and how something has changed, and maybe you're not comfortable with that. I'm feeling a little bit of maybe discomfort as you're saying it out loud. I just really I want to reach through and give you a hug, and I want to tell you that it's okay. And as Suzanne said, you're not alone. But having that courage to be vulnerable in front of a bunch of strangers is part of your healing. And you've just been introduced to a whole bunch of women here who might be able to help you on different components and not just run. But I think your story represents a lot of the audience that we're trying to reach. So having you present in the room, I feel is this conversation wouldn't have been the same if you weren't here. And same for you too, Jean. You guys both bring important observations in that we don't always have time to cover in detail. So just from my heart, I see you, I feel you, I lift you up, Joanna especially, and just trust that you're going to get the information you need to get you one step closer every day.
Thank you.
Yeah, and go vegetables. You got it. I love one new vegetable a week. That's great.
I have help. My son loves to cook, and the other day he baked me some asparagus with a lot of garlic. I can eat anything covering garlic.
There you go. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Gotta
Okay,
make them
we
taste
got a
good.
big tip now. Joanna
Yes.
and garlic. Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
love it. Denise, anything else you want to cover today?
The only thing I want to cover is just to ask the panelists to make sure you put your contact information in the chat, and for Jean and Joanna to before you leave, to make sure you save the chat, because there's definitely some information in there that you'll want to tap.
Yeah, please put your contact info in the chat, everybody that's here today. Denise has a special gift for you, her recipes for making 5 dinners in an hour. And I use that when I meal prep every week to some degree. Thank you, Denise. And if you found today's discussion helpful, connect with the speakers, the panelists on LinkedIn or on Living Healthy List. And don't forget to subscribe to Living Healthy List for that ongoing support with blogs and our other meaningful conversations. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more. And consider scheduling a time with Denise to talk about your goals, either as a Living Healthy List expert or as an attendee today, if you're looking to take your health to the next level. She's one of my favorite knowledgeable experts and motivates me every week to be the best version of myself. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And join us for our next one, which is Monday, June 13th. Same link as today.
Tuesday. Did I write Monday? It's Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday, June 13th. You just said next month, and I said next Monday.
Yeah, Tuesday the 13th.
Yeah. Tuesday, June 13th.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thanks to the hosts, the organizers, and the guests. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks for
You
welcoming me.
too.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay. End recording. Awesome.
Yay.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Andrea, I was waiting for you to come in because I was like, Andrea's got so much information. She's gonna I was kind of stepping in. I was stepping in
Yay.
until you came.
Yeah, well, you're fully qualified having taken my program. That's amazing.
Yeah, but I knew you and Marjorie would have great rapport, because you both have a lot in common with your thought process and your knowledge and experience. So it's
Marjorie, let's have a chat, a collab.
I would love that. I would love that so much.
You focus on menopause and perimenopause?
Yeah, perimenopause and menopause, helping women thrive, and my background's in yoga and Ayurveda. So that's a piece of it, but I'm not focusing on the food like you are.
Awesome.
Not much. Yeah.
awesome. And both of you are Living Healthy List experts, and I'm so thrilled. I'm really thrilled to have you both here and appreciate you. And Marjorie, I'm going to be in San Diego in the beginning of June, so let's connect.
Oh, I'd love that. Let me know.
Yeah, let's connect offline, and I'll let you know when I'll be there. We'll figure some time.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you, Diane and Andrea.
You too. Andrea, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
The step 5 and step 6, because I was taking notes. Accumulation, aggravation, overflow, localization. What is 5 and 6? Where Western medicine steps in.
That is manifestation and complication.
Got
5
it.
and
Thank
6.
you.
So manifesting is when it can actually be named as a disease. Yeah, and
Right.
just to clarify for you, like bloating and those kinds of signs, like different situations with your stools, those are signs and symptoms before a disease, right? You need a lot of gas and bloating, before it manifests into IBS, for example.
Right.
Or something. So those are exactly signs and symptoms along the way. But then they get worse and they get worse. Like, constipation can be like, everything's in gradations. Everything is in a spectrum, it's like a little bit, and then it gets worse and it gets worse and it's worse. And then it damages tissues. and then it moves into other systems. And, you know, things circulate where they're not supposed to circulate, and then that thing localizes somewhere else. So that's how you talk about like root causes of disease. Like the root cause is here, but the disease is over here because they spread and it moves throughout the body. And Ayurveda can actually track that. It's incredible. Although
I think we actually need a LHL list on Ayurvedic specifically, so we can pull out those and help listeners understand how things accumulate, how they aggravate, how they overflow. I love your description. I'm familiar with it. I don't practice an Ayurvedic lifestyle or diet yet, but it's always intrigued me, and it makes complete sense when I listen to and look at other people describing what's happening in their world. So I'll be connecting with you later, but Denise,
yeah, let's have a conversation.
we can have an hour conversation on what the body's doing, and then tie that back into how people can listen to what their body is trying to tell them. Like
Sure, I can help you to translate how you work with people, maybe from that Ayurveda.
There's like you could do an interpretive guide for the layman.
I think actually that this is a great conversation, you know, just the Ayurveda conversation. I think that's okay. Well, we'll definitely schedule another conversation like this. I think it'd be great.
You guys are amazing.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Hey, Di, what's going on with you?
Just I'm happy, loving life. I'm actually writing a chapter right now on. I'm contributing to another person's book on. It's called Wise Women, Maiden, Mother, and Crone, and I'm writing to the component of what we get, why we go to nature when we're a child versus when we're a working adult versus when we're older women. How do we get out? How do we get out of it? I'm super excited to be. Thank you for asking me to kind of participate in this conversation. I feel like I've been missing community and a sense of rhythm. And you know, it's like we packed everything up, we moved, we got busy doing stuff with Jimmy, got busy doing stuff in the house, and now it's like I don't have my routine yet. I don't have my office space yet. I don't have me. I don't have this thing.
Yeah.
Like I need to be fed, and you asking me to participate in this has allowed me to feed it.
Well, Diane, I love how you can take what we're talking about and like really change that perspective, because so much of living a healthy lifestyle is about that perspective and the mindset. And you just have a way of talking about it that people go, oh yeah, wait a minute. That's a really great idea. You know, and you know, especially, and I loved it how it fit so well in this topic. And I always appreciate, you know, your insight and, you know, just being able to hang out.
Sidebar, I still see a tag of my recording that says live on YouTube. You have to